Breach, as was Schofield. I went to Oswin Avenue School, which was changed to Balby Secondary School, from 1947 to 1951. Well, I was born in Balby in Low Road, and then we moved to Ellesmere Avenue because we were a bigger family. And I had 10 brothers and sisters. One girl died at a month old with heart disease. When it got to my school days, I do remember my first day at school, which was at King Edward Road School, and my mother taking me there. All I can remember there was rows and rows of cupboards around the school classroom. We were able to play with a lot of toys, which was very good. And I remember taking my own doll to school, and I put it in a bath of water and it all cracked. So that was one item I remembered. The school itself went through the bad winter of 47, and I remember the school playground being iced over for months and months, and we used to do slides, make slides on the ice, and the boys we used to queue up, and then the boys would just come behind you and lift you up and swizzle you around, which was quite thrilling in those days. Then we had the thaw, and we were all excited because we could see the school playground underneath the ice. At that time we had a new building put over opposite the school for dinner, school lunches, which we hadn't had before. The new Nissen huts where we had the lunches, and we used to queue up for lunches there, and I think I got mine free because I hadn't got a father. We had a very stern headmaster there, and nobody liked. We used to get the cane as well at that school if we were naughty. Of course, I took the 11 plus exam there, and I didn't pass. So then the following autumn I went to the Oswin Avenue School. I don't know whether the name had changed by then. I think it had, because you had to have a uniform, which my mother couldn't afford, so I had to go in something near enough to the uniform. The cookery classes, we had to wear aprons and caps, and we had to have the logo of the school embroidered on. Well, I had my sister's old apron and cap, but because it had got the wrong logo on it, initials of the school, I had to unpick it all and redo it. So that didn't go down very well. We had two cookery classes, and the one I was in, it was a Miss Henderson, and we had to take washing to school to do, and teacher would examine to see if we'd done it right. Then we had to learn how to iron. We had to do ironing under supervision, and as well as cooking as well. And we had to clean knives and forks with a cork dipped in a powder, scouring powder, and we had to clean these knives and forks with it. And we also had a little flat in a corner of the cookery classroom, and we had to learn how to clean this flat with dusting, and I can't remember whether they had a hoover, probably not. I really enjoyed the cookery classes, and I did quite well with them, especially the baking and cakes and things. And if the teacher was having anybody go that was important, or people from the school, heads of other schools, she used to send for me to help her setting tables out and refreshments for these people. And of course that got me off other lessons as well. So I enjoyed that. And if there was any icing to be done, when we could get icing, for royal icing, like for cakes, I always used to get the job because I was good at that. So I did take it up when I left school, actually, doing cakes and icing. I didn't do very well at PE or anything like that, but I remember we went to the town moor to play hockey. We had a hockey team, and I was good at that. I always used to get the centre position of that. The other thing that, of course, was music, which I really enjoyed, and I used to sing a lot when we all met in the hall in the morning. Assembly. War broke out then, so she was minus 3 boys that went into the war. Each one went in the army, one went in the RAF, the other went on the merchant navy ships. And they all had incidents in the war. The one in the merchant navy, which was an important job then, because of all the food coming over. And he got torpedoed off the coast of Africa, near Cape Town. Told us about all the fruit and all the goods all floating about on the water, and they had to swim to shore. Fortunately, he said it was only about a mile to shore, and when they got there, he was picked up by a couple who took him to their house and looked after him until he was able to get another ship. And he did keep in touch with them after the war. The one in the RAF was in Burma, and when he came home, he had this big curved knife, and it was the only thing he mentioned about the war, and he said it saved his life, because they were in the jungle, and the Japanese were in trees, and one jumped out on him, and he had to kill him with this knife. Because they never liked to talk much about the war, but he did mention that one. And the one in the army, he drove tanks in Egypt and Alexandria. And he was driving a tank and he got a bullet through the peak of his cap. So all 3 had near misses, if you could say that. And but they all came back quite safely. But the one in the army, he was a naughty boy because he absconded, what do they call it, AWOL, and he was put in what they call the glass house, if that's familiar. These are just things that as a child, the words just stick in your memory. And my mother was very upset. She got this letter to say he'd been put in this place, but then eventually he had to go back into war. My other brother was, he was in Cyprus. There was some bother in Cyprus, that's much later, and he was involved in that. And then the one in the merchant navy, he went to Hong Kong, and there was the problems in Korea, and he was involved in that. So they all had quite a time of it. I've just got 2 brothers left now. One's 3 years older than me and the other's about 5 years older than me. But they weren't involved in any wars or anything like that. But I don't know if my mother ever got any, there wouldn't be benefits in those days, would there? And so I don't know how she managed, really. I know she used to make Christmas puddings and sell them. And she used to take somebody's ironing in and do that. And then she got cleaning jobs and did that. She did all sorts of things. And you don't sort of appreciate it until you get older and think what she had to do. Because the house was rented, I can always remember saying, it's rent day, don't make a noise. If the knock comes at the door, don't answer it and don't make a noise. And don't go near the glass, because the rent man will see. So yeah, that was a problem. And then, of course, during the war, I can remember, I had to have blackout. I can remember rapping at the door one night, and my mother went, and we were being told off because they could see a chink of light through the blackout curtains. So that had to be put right. And of course we had a little Anderson shelter down the bottom of the garden. And I do remember going in that, and we did keep it after the war to put the bikes in. But it was so tiny, I don't think we all went in, because I know my mother had a job getting my other brothers out of bed, because you could hear the sirens going. But no, we're not getting up. But I remember going in it. Smelt damp and that, you know. Then, now I don't know whether this was King Edward Road or Oswin Avenue, but we had to knit dishcloths at the time. For what purpose, I don't know where they went. We had a visitor one day who brought a big box full of Horlicks tablets. And they were in a little tube like you'd get now with lozenges in. And we were all handed out a tube of these Horlicks tablets, which we all devoured straight away because we were all so hungry. Well, that was the end of the war, and they all had street parties. There's quite a few photographs now of each street because there were some in either side streets of us. Everybody baked or cooked something for the party, and we put streamers up from opposite houses. I don't know how they did it, but we had them from one bedroom window across to the other bedroom window. Because the three brothers, they were still having to stay in the war at the end of the war. They couldn't come home yet. Apart from that, I don't think we did anything else. But we did have other street parties, but they would be much later. And we used to be able to have music then outside and do a bit of dancing and things like that. I've always been interested in music. Music was quite a big thing in Oswin Avenue. They took it quite seriously. And we had a marvellous teacher in Mrs. Evans who really enjoyed teaching us, and we used to do a lot of plays that had music in. And I used to get the main singing parts for it. I also had nativity plays, and I used to be in the chorus for that and sing some of the carols that were in it. If there was any music happening at all, I was always involved. When the Festival of Britain was announced, they said they were going to have this choir made up from pupils all over the country. 3 or 4 pupils from each school, boys and girls, and they would form this choir to sing in the Royal Albert Hall, and it was going to be a special piece written for this concert. So we had some music teachers. I think one was a Mr. Appleby, but he had a big choir in Doncaster. He came with 2 other people, by what I can remember, and each person had to go in this room, and they had the backs turned, so we had to sing a piece of music that they provided without music to make sure that we were pitch perfect. That was the sort of audition for it, and then we later found out that who'd got picked for this choir, and I was fortunate enough to be picked for it. And I was absolutely thrilled, of course, going to London in the Royal Albert Hall. I'd never been anywhere like that before. So I do remember going down on the train, and there were a lot of other school children from the other schools on it, and we all sort of friends with each other. And then when we got to London, we had to go straight away into a rehearsal for the concert. I can still, in my mind's eye, remember where I was sat, actually, in the Royal Albert Hall. I was sat just underneath the organ and at the left-hand side. And so we did the rehearsal for it, and then the next day was the concert. We spent the night in people who had offered to put us up for that night, people with other children. And so I stayed with this family. Then the next day was the concert, and then it was back home again on the train. As I said, I've got no photographs at all of it. Nobody else knew about it because there were only three or four of us picked, so a lot of people, when you asked them about it, oh, I don't remember that, but because I was actually in it, I remember it. So, it was only a short passage of probably one verse of something, but yes, Maureen and I, who were very friendly, we always went together for the rehearsals, and she complained all the time about it, saying how horrible it was, and I didn't like it. But she mentioned about discords. I don't know if you know what I mean by discords. Well, it's not excuse me, it's not tuneful at all. It's just sort of random music, and I don't know why it was written like that for something that was supposed to be a festival. But anyway, we got through it and sang it, but you can tell that I don't remember anything of it except that it wasn't very nice. And I think if they'd have made one that was tuneful and that you could remember it, I would still remember it. But I can't. You see, I can't remember who composed it, because I remember Sir Thomas Beecham and Sir Adrian Boult were the two. Now, I think Sir Adrian Boult was a conductor. I'm not sure whether he composed music or not. Yes, after that, of course, I left school. So I didn't carry on much at all with the music after that, because there wasn't much going anyway. But now I couldn't afford to do anything like that, because as soon as I left school, I had to get a job. In fact, I worked the next day. I left school one day and I got a job in a shop the next day. And all the money was counted out on the table at home. It's so much for your bus fares to work, and so much for your clothing, and so much for your keep. So there was never any spare money, and you couldn't just join. You'd got to pay a fee to join. You got to buy your own music, sheets of music, which was out of the question, or your scripts for plays or anything like that. Because I wasn't asked to join the Appleby Choir, Mr. Appleby's choir, and that was another fee you'd got to pay for. So nothing ever came of that, you see. So it all went by the way, which it's sad, really. I just hadn't got the opportunities to do it. I did as much as I could myself, playing the piano, buying music and playing the piano. In fact, I didn't always buy it. I used to borrow somebody's music and copy it out, because sheet music was quite decorative in those days, but I used to copy it all out on paper, draw my own lines, draw my own music signs and everything, and then I gave her the music back. But occasionally if I'd got enough money, I'd buy some. When I left school, I was told about this job at a place called Solo, and it was at the top of Hallgate, and it was regarded as being quite a high-class shop, selling ladies' hosiery, underwear and things like that. And she was leaving, so she said, if you want me to put a word in for you, I'll see if I can get you the job. So I got word to go for an interview. My mother went with me, actually, in those days. Went for this interview, and she said, can you start tomorrow? Because it was just before Christmas. And because I'd missed the September leaving of school, because I was 15 on the 25th of September, and the new term had started at the beginning of September, so I missed out those 4 weeks, and I had to wait till Christmas. But anyway, I left at Christmas and got this job in Solo. And one of the first customers I had was Miss Dingwall from the school. I think she must have been spying on me. And anyway, she came in and she asked to look at embroidered handkerchiefs. So I got the drawer out that had all the handkerchiefs in, the fancy one. And she picked a couple of these handkerchiefs out. But I always remember her saying, I don't want those two on the top. I'll have some from underneath, they'll be cleaner. So I sold two handkerchiefs to her. And of course we used to sell what were called nylons in those days, and we had to take them out of the packet and put your hand in and show them what the colour was like. So you've got to have nice hands and nice nails so that you didn't snag these, and they could just examine the colour of them, see if it suited. They used to get some really nice, unusual lingerie for women in there. I did leave there because the money wasn't very good, and Solo started going a bit down market, if you call it that way, and they opened a few more shops. They've got a wool shop in Cleveland Street, sold wool, and I went to work in that branch for a while to stand in for somebody. And then they had another one in Marketplace, near the market, Solo, and that was a really down market shop, but I'd left by then. And I went to work at the Benefit Shoe Shop, which used to be called Public Benefit. So I worked there for 3 years. I worked in all the departments, men's, children's and ladies' shoes. And we had a very strict manager. If you didn't sell somebody a pair of shoes, he'd come down on you like a ton of bricks. What did that lady want? Why didn't you sell her some shoes? You had to explain every detail why you hadn't sold these shoes. So that wasn't very good. So after 3 years, I wasn't getting much money there, so I inquired about, they were asking for people to work at Burtons Tailoring factory on Weekly Hall Road. My mother wasn't very happy. She said, "Oh, you're not going in a factory." I said, "Well, it's a lot more money." It was about £7. So anyway, I went for an interview there, and he said, it wasn't actually in the sewing part, it was in the shaping part of coats, jackets, men's jackets. Have you used a pair of scissors? And I said, "Oh yeah, so I make my own clothes." "Oh, all right then." So of course when I got these scissors to cut these jackets out, they were about that big. And I got awful blisters at first. But we had these templates to cut the shape of the front of the jacket out, the lapel part, and we were on piecework, and that was terrible. That was like slave labour. You had to do so many of these jackets in an hour, and each jacket you did, you cut a little ticket off, a sheet of tickets, and you cut the ticket off and put it in a folder, and they were counted up every hour to see how many you'd done, and it all depended on how many you did as to what money you got. So there's not much chance of going to the ladies' room or anything like that. Anyway, I did that for a while, and then I was asked to be a supervisor, and I thought, oh, well, that's up a bit, you know. Little did I know it was twice as bad. I had to take the flak of everything. The jackets that went wrong one day, and there was a great heap of them, and I just didn't know what to do. So I marched up to one of the managers that was there. I said, "I don't want this job." I said, "It's a thankless job." And I said, "I'd rather go back to doing the cutting of the shaping of the jackets." So, all right. Of course then, I'd not been doing that job for a while, so I'd lost the speed. So I had to get the speed up again to earn so much money an hour. Then they started to change the way that you did it. And you had to cut about half an inch inside the jacket of the interfacing, the like buckram stuff, and that took longer. You've got to be careful you hadn't got to cut the material underneath as well. So that didn't suit. I didn't like that at all. And then, of course, I'd met my husband by then, and I didn't want to stay there. It was awkward to get home from Weekly Hall Road to Balby. It was 2 buses. And when it was foggy, you had to walk home. No buses, because they were fogged then. I did get married while I was still at Burtons. But then after that, because I was late home all the time, my husband said, "Oh, you'll have to find another job, it's no good. You're coming home late all the time." So, because the Oxy buses were only every hour. So my sister got me a job at international harvesters in the packing room, where the spare parts for all the tractors and all the other machinery that they did, all the spare parts, they used to come in with the orders for all these, and we had to go along all these sections of tubs and things and pick out the part, then take it back to the desk and pack it up. Well, it was a filthy job. I think I was there about 2 months, and then one day there was not much work to pack up, so they decided we would clean all these tubs out, and I was absolutely filthy when I got home. My husband took one look at me and he said, "I've got a dirty job, you're not having one as well." So I just packed it in, because he was an engineer. We had our own business in Bentley, motor business. He was an engineer, him and his father. So I hadn't been home, finished that job very long when I fell pregnant, and so I didn't bother going back to work at all, and I never did. My husband didn't like me going out to work, and in those days you didn't say anything. You didn't say, "I'm going out to work, I want my own money." You just accepted it. And I did help with the work. I did some of the paperwork for him, and I used to do the bank trips and everything, so I did sort of work. But he liked to come home for his dinner. You see, he worked in Bentley, and he loved his dinner at dinner time, at lunchtime. I did try to get a job later on when the 2 children were a bit older, but I didn't get it, and I never bothered anymore after that. Fortunately, we were able to finance ourselves all right, because we had the business, or even though it was a struggle. So yeah, we had that business until my husband died when he was 70. He got bad heart trouble, and it ran in the family actually. That was just 20 years ago when he died. Just before that, he had sold the business, the land that went with it, and the Jehovah's Witnesses bought the land and had their house on it. It's near that crossing. And so it was all done in a few months. We were lucky, really. We didn't have to advertise it or anything. Belmont Garage have got it now. Belmont moved from the side of where we were into where my husband's garage was, and had it made a bit bigger, and they're still there. So that was the end of that.
If you would like to know more about the Ossie Through the Ages project, then please email me at tonyarmstrong1959@outlook.com. Thank you.